Welcome to Folklore on the Rocks.
Hello, everybody. I'm Logan.
I'm Lindsay.
And this is Folklore on the Rocks. Oh, boy, I'm so excited. Oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy. It is an exciting day. We've got a very exciting creature, and I'm very excited to tell you all about it.
You guys, Logan is so excited.
So excited.
Tell us about... Well, okay, no. Let's wait a second. First, let's talk about our drink, and then you can tell us everything.
First, we drink. Okay.
First, we drink in the true Viking fashion.
Yeah.
Or maybe I guess they drank after. I don't know.
Or during.
Drinking is the true Viking fashion, correct.
And what else do Vikings drink but...
They, I believe, drink mead.
Oh, mead, you say?
They do. I think they drink mead and ale. Mead dates back a long time. It's similar to wine, in case you've never had it before. A lot of people haven't had mead.
You know, usually what I say to people who haven't had mead is picture like a really dry white wine and you'd be pretty close as far as flavor goes.
It can depend on the mead too. Like some are sweeter than others. Sugar's added to some, I assume. So it's similar to wine, but instead of grapes, it's made with honey. So, like, very specifically, it's made with honey, water, and yeast. And you can add other flavors to it by putting in herbs and spices and fruits.
Yeah. Because,
they
alcohol comes from yeast eating sugar, and the sugar has to come from somewhere. Often it comes from grapes, but in this instance, it comes from honey. And now you know how to make mead. Which
honestly might make it even healthier than wine. I don't know. I haven't looked up anything about that, so don't take that for gospel. But
I know I'm not a doctor, but I do like mead.
But in general, like, honey is a safer sugar. Like, adding honey to stuff is healthier than adding straight up sugar to stuff.
Yeah, it seems if I need to project an image of I take care of myself and I'm a health conscious person, I could say, yeah, I would like some honey instead of some sugar. Yeah, that would work.
I'll take honey in my tea instead.
Yeah.
Yes. We don't have access to a whole lot of mead here in Utah, unfortunately.
Nope, the first mead that I had was brewed by my friend Dimitri.
There you go. From what I understand, it has kind of a small shelf life. So it's not like how wines can age and get better. It's like a year or two.
Yeah, it's got a window.
When you want to drink it. It doesn't keep up super well. But for us, since we don't have a ton of wine available here, we have wine, but we don't have a ton of mead here in Utah. And we have a local winery that makes some mead. I haven't tried it before. But we specifically are drinking Chaucer's honey mead, or just Chaucer's mead, but it's honey.
Yeah, it's available in our liquor stores here. Yeah. And it is of the meads I've had, it's a sweeter mead. Mm-hmm. But it does the job. Best while cold.
Yes. So it does come with a spice bag that you can use if you want to heat it up and make like mulled or hot spiced mead, or you can just drink it chilled, like you would a white wine. It's a lot easier. It tastes better. Probably don't want to drink at room temperature. Not going to taste as great. But this mead specifically is from the Bargetto winery, and it's from honey, and I think it's a winery that's in California, but the honey is also from California too. So we're drinking that. We're having a good time.
The one thing about mead is because it does have a fair amount of sugar to it, be careful when you drink too much of it, because you will get a hangover.
Even more so when it's hot.
This is a hangover-inducing alcohol. I can speak from experience.
Yeah, maybe a good drink to sip.
Yeah.
It's not, from what I was reading earlier, I think it's like an 11% or 11% by volume. But
it's not the most alcoholic beverage out there, but
like wine can trick you too.
Yeah.
Especially if you're drinking sweet wines. Like, they're really easy to drink, and you can drink a lot pretty fast. You know, you hit that rosé or something, or that Moscato, and you're just like, ooh, this is yummy. And can get a little bit dangerous at times. That's for sure. But yeah, we're having a good time. We, and by we, I mean me sorta, but super mostly Logan, are very, very excited to talk about our creature tonight.
Oh, so excited. So
and what
excited.
is it? Logan, tell us.
Well, I could tell you, but I think I would rather sing it for you. See, I have a selection here from an old Viking saga, translated by Kevin Schmidt, I believe is the pronunciation, from the saga of Clerks. The song is called Berserker.
My love for you is like a truck berserker. Would you like some making fuck berserker? My love for you is like a rock berserker.
All right, if anybody actually gets the joke in there, we're
my
friends
God.
for life.
I super think that we need to make that like a ringtone for people. It might be copyrighted, but
I'm
whatever.
sure it is. But yes, we are doing Berserkers. That is our creature for today's show. We're going to look at it from a couple different angles. The supernatural angle and also the historical angle of what goes into the story of the Berserker.
My two favorite angles.
Yes, it's a good way to start. So to start off with, just from the very, very bare bones, we all know the word berserk. That's a pretty common word in the English language, to kind of lose control and to enter an animalistic, frenzy state. And the origin of that comes from these Viking warriors. The berserkers were kind of believed to be an elite group of animal warriors that went into battle with very little or no armor, focusing on an all offense and almost no defense strategy, and really being one of the first recorded instances of psychological warfare, placed at just the highest as high a level as skill and physical prowess.
I mean, yeah, intimidation was like a really big factor.
It was a tool that they used like anything else. Yeah. So they were shock troopers in Viking armies. They weren't the entirety of Viking forces. They weren't. It wasn't just a whole pile of raiders all losing their minds, not wearing any armor, and marching into battle with no formation whatsoever. Just a couple of them, just enough to kind of go ahead and break the ranks of anybody ahead of, that they're marching into, to really break a lot of morale. There's a lot of accounts of these crazed Northmen wearing nothing but animal skins into battle, biting their own shields, and going into these frenzied states before combat. And it's something that has gone forward into a lot of different forms in pop culture, and we'll explore some of those as we go. But yeah, so that's the intro to the Berserker. Any questions so far, Lindsay?
No. I mean, it's. I really like that we're kind of creeping into the etymology behind the word berserker.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, everybody's heard the term to go berserk about something, to freak out and rage and whatnot. So it's fun to kind of explore that. And then I'm just really excited about learning more about the magical aspects of this creature, of this myth.
And so to start with, I'd like to kind of explore berserkers from the external view. This is from those who were in the unlucky position to be those who were raided by Vikings. That's they see these long ships pull up, out of the fog, and warriors pour out.
God, what a terrifying sight that must have been.
And on the front line, they don't have their biggest, most heavily armored troops. They have what I'm going to assume are men. I was unable to find any written instances of women, although there's an awful lot of representation of all genders throughout. It wasn't as woke as now, but it was a little bit more woke than you'd think.
I'm fairly certain there were definitely Viking warrior women, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
As far as I know,
yeah. Shield maidens, that was kind of a thing. But as far as berserkers, as far as officially having the name, not sure. Could be wrong. Yeah,
so
it wasn't alive.
Maybe they were woke enough to not even feel the need to mention it.
Yeah, maybe it was a non-issue. If only we could all be so advanced.
Right. We will get there someday. Maybe.
Maybe. And so it was believed that these warriors were unkillable. that the more you struck at them, or the more arrows you fired into them, the angrier they got and the stronger they got because of it.
Which just makes them scarier.
Yeah, in many instances, there were specific tactics for how to deal with a berserker. Most of the time, it's get them down at range before they can close the distance, or find a way to distract them long enough to outnumber them. It's a fighting style that warranted thought specifically on how to deal with it, which is interesting, to say the least. So here we have an excerpt from the Ynglinga saga by Snorri Sturluson. It was written in the 1200s, and it's largely regarded to be a pretty accurate account of some of the early history of the Vikings. So check it out.
When Odin of Aesaland came to the north, and the Dr came with him, they introduced and taught to the others the arts which people long afterwards have practiced. Odin was the cleverest of all, and from him the others learned their arts and accomplishments. And he knew them first, and knew many more than other people. But now, to tell why he is held in such high respect, we must mention various causes that contributed to it. When sitting among his friends, his countenance was so beautiful and dignified that the spirits of all were exhilarated by it. But when he was in war, he appeared dreadful to his foes. This arose from being able to change his skin and form to any way he liked. Another cause was that he conversed so cleverly and smoothly that all who heard him believed him, and he spoke everything in rhyme, such as now composed, which we call skaldcraft. He and his temple priests were called songsmiths, for from them came that art of song into the northern countries. Odin could make his enemies in battle blind or deaf, or terror-struck, and their weapons so blunt that they could no more but than a willow wand. On the other hand, his men rushed forward without armor, and were as mad as dogs or wolves, bit their shields, and were as strong as bears or wild bulls, and killed people at a blow. But neither fire nor iron told upon themselves. These were called Berserker.
Good old Snorri, man.
It's like, yeah.
I mean, he was, we'll talk about the snippet in a second, but from what I know about him, which is very, very little, he was Icelandic. He was, I believe, like a Christian historian of some, a Christian chroniclist,
from what I understand,
maybe?
From what I understand, that's correct. A lot of his stories were the Christian interpretation of these old ways, but he tried to be a little less dismissive than several other chroniclers of other cultures, I guess.
He felt like an OG anthropologist, kind of, really. He's kind of like another Herodotus in a way.
A little bit, yeah. Now, one thing to note, in that passage, he did talk about how they went in without armor. Specifically, it is from Sturluson's writings that the Berserker part of the name Berserker meant bare-chested, it's like barefoot, kind of B-A-R-E, without clothing or armor into battle. Now, the revised and more widely accepted interpretation of this is that it actually means bare shirt, as in B-E-A-R. Wearing actually the skin of a bear into battle as armor, kind of, but really more as an intimidation tactic.
Well, and it fits it fits right into the lore of a lot of shapeshifting myths.
Oh, yes, it does.
Kind of like skinwalkers. And this passage specifically mentioned that, like this arose from him being able to change his skin in any form, and form in any way he liked, right? So like, It was, the skin had some sort of bearing, no pun intended, on this berserker aspect.
Yes, there were the Berserkers, known for their sarks made of bears, and the Ulfhethnar.
Well,
they were wolves.
Yeah. And I think really interesting was the fact that they specifically learned this from Odin.
Mm-hmm. And one of the interesting things about them is it's not so much just kind of chilling out in the boat until it's time to go into battle, where they're just like, okay, yeah, so first one to collect 10 scalps, you win. No, they did a thing called Berserker Gang, which is the battle dance. It's the frenzy before you go in. Now, I've actually, just recently, in the last couple of days, I'll call it research, I have gone to 3 different instances of kind of frenzied dancing motion. One was at a, one was at a very, very good but serious crowd heavy metal concert.
As you do.
I'm glad I didn't break my nose in that one.
Man.
it was a rough crowd, but anyway, think really the mosh pit is pretty close. The idea of just leaping and getting all of the energy and all of the adrenaline going all the time. It in many ways it reminds me of like the Hassassin dance, the dervishes. There are other high energy fighting styles and warriors that utilize this tactic, but the Berserkers were really known for it. Also, I feel like we would be remiss as the drinking and folklore show to not touch on the toxicology element of these guys.
I love toxicology. I'm a true crimer at heart too, so anything we can get into this kind of stuff, I love.
Yeah, there's been a lot of evidence, and some of it I think is conjecture, but it fits more than it doesn't, that a lot of the Berserker frenzy and dance and everything that comes with it was spurred on by either large amounts of alcohol, which I would believe. I know my best dance moves are after several drinks.
We've talked about this before, and I find it hard to overstate how insane Logan's ability to A, stay upright, and B, be as graceful as like a gazelle when he is dancing his face off. Like it's bananas and like super impressive. Like it's hard to overstate this. There may be no other person that I know that can handle this as well as you, and maybe it's your ancestry.
Well, maybe, yes. I'll chalk it up a little bit to being able to survive the Berserker gangs.
These are his people, you guys.
Yeah, that is how I can just dance all night long to our local 80s cover band.
Yeah.
Which is where I went the night after the heavy metal concert.
Oh, spazzies. They're the greatest.
Yes. And then the final kind of example that I did of the Berserker gang, I attended a wedding where there was, again, way too much dancing. And just the act of dancing and moving to music and kind of being free with no right or wrong way to do it, I feel like that's the beginning of what leads into the Berserker outlook.
Yeah.
Now, it's something that... so alcohol, I definitely believe it. There's also been some conjecture that this battle madness was brought on by hallucinogenic mushrooms.
That definitely sounds like it could contribute to that. When you're seeing things, I mean, it's pretty easy to use that to fuel that fighting feeling.
So there are a lot of different accounts as far as what goes into the Berserker mindset. But for the most part, the lack of acknowledgement of pain is a big part of it. Confusion about who the enemy actually is usually a big part of it.
Yeah, it'd be a lot of friendly fire, for lack of a better term.
And
but,
fighting
they brawl anyway.
like a vicious animal.
Yeah.
So I would believe that someone in a drug-induced state might do that. There's also been a lot of talk that it could have been the early utilization of people with schizophrenia.
Interesting. And that, I guess that would contribute into how not every warrior was a berserker.
Yeah, not everyone was a berserker. Not everybody from Scandinavia was a Viking. This was a specific group within a group here. And they were believed that they had this blessing or this curse from the gods. It was largely associated with Odin, that they could enter this indestructible battle trance state. and a lot of it is tied back to the drive for a glorious death.
Yeah, and that entry into Valhalla, literally the ultimate goal.
Yeah, and that's how you do it. There have been a whole lot of Berserker archetypes in pop culture going down the line.
It's very barbarian D&D.
Yeah, barbarian D&D. That's a really good place to start.
But
Yeah, where they actually have an action called Rage.
Yeah.
That makes them stronger and hardier in combat,
and reckless,
but more reckless.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what these characters are really
frenzied
all about.
rage. That's what the other one's called.
Yeah.
Frenzied rage is like the next step beyond rage. But yeah, for sure, that's got that element to it. But what are some other Berserker tie-ins with pop culture?
Well, the biggest one in Marvel Comics, we talked about how they borrow a lot from Norse mythology in their characters like Thor, but in their archetypes, you look at Wolverine. He's a quintessential Berserker.
True.
Because he can't be hurt. His fighting style is one of utter reckless abandonment.
And claws.
And claws. So he doesn't know how to fight in a way that has an element of self-preservation to it. Another great example of this is the Hulk, a character that the angrier he gets, the stronger he gets.
And his form changes too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so that's a really easy tie-in. And if someone was wondering what's a Berserker like, think the Hulk, and you would have the right idea.
Take a super intelligent person and turn them into a mindless, raging, killing machine, essentially.
Yeah, and it's an archetype you see all over the place. Both Krieg and Salvador in the Borderlands games, different flavors of Berserkers.
Okay.
And I could go on and list them all, and I'm sure everyone's thinking of some kind of character that does this.
Tweet them to us.
Yeah, we'd love to hear your favorite Berserker archetype. I've got a little quote here. This is from the saga of Hrolf Kraki. There we go. It's a 13th century Icelandic legendary saga about Hrolf Kraki, who was a king who would have lived in the early 6th century. Bodvar Bjarki plowed into them now, hacking two-handed, his only thought to do as much damage as he could before he fell. And now that they fell in heaps before him, one on top of another, and both his arms are bloody to the shoulder, and he felled so many, the dead were stacked all about him. He stormed on as if he were insane.
As if he were insane.
Yeah, something like that.
I like it.
And it's this idea of the blood-soaked, steam rising off of them warrior that feels no pain and just continues marching forward as the unstoppable force.
It's terrifying.
And
that primal right in your face.
Yeah, and that's really how a lot of the victims of these Viking raids perceived these warriors. They were a very scary thing.
I'd imagine so, yeah.
Yeah, if a berserker comes in, chances are you run or you won't survive. It's not a good thing. Now, internally, but among the Vikings, to have the status of a berserker was a really cool thing. That was a mark of honor. There are actually some Viking rulers and leaders that were, like, for example, in the TV show Vikings, there's a character, Ivar the Boneless, who is a pretty interesting character and based on a real historical character. And if you read Ivar the Boneless's, any of his, Wikipedia entries or anything like that, one of his many occupations was berserker. That is because
I like that.
he had a reputation as a warrior that would go into this frenzy and, kill until there was nothing to be killed. And that was a really cool thing to the Vikings. So it's neat that this is a creature in many ways that has some supernatural elements, but also some revered elements. This is a gift from the gods, and something to not to be squandered, I guess, is the goal here.
Well, yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's like it's showing how much stronger they can be, and the fact that they're blessed, and kind of utilizing that in their pillaging and other
pillaging
battles.
and plundering and general ravaging. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe not always, the best outcomes for the places that they are, the shores they're landing upon, but, it was very much what just happened at the time,
Yeah. And there's a lot of belief that from these stories of these totem-based frenzy warriors, that from these stories we got some of the early accounts of werewolves. And that I can really see.
Because there were the wolf ones that you talked about.
Yes, and they would. There's drawings and illustrations of them wearing wolf pelts into armor, into battle as armor, and it's definitely something that they took a lot of pride in. Mm-hmm. They channeled the spirits of the bear, the wolf, the boar. They carried these like totems or like a patronus into battle, and they thought that gave them strength.
And I mean, just with the power of the human mind, like thinking something can make you stronger.
Yeah, we've all heard the accounts of the mother who lifts a car off, their child in a fit of
that adrenaline.
Adrenaline,
man.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was pumping.
I know I have gotten into a situation where adrenaline's pumping and you don't feel things that normally would have hurt a lot more. And for me, it's usually stupid things like being on stage. When you've got a couple hundred audience members watching you, okay, you can tough down having just dinged your knee on the underside of a table as hard as you can,
hitting your funny bone somewhere.
Yeah, you can just keep it under control. And so I think on a smaller scale, that's kind of what goes into the Berserkers as well. It's just being right in the moment, enjoying the flow of combat. Now, while I don't like to glorify the blood, guts, and gore that comes with hacking your opponent to pieces, I do think there is something to be said for living in the moment. That kind of walking the knife's edge and not planning anything and not regretting everything is a really cool place to be, no matter what you're doing. The Berserkers just happen to do it when, slaughtering others.
Yeah, you talk about the zone, and that's exactly where these guys or gals were. They were literally in the zone of this headspace. Mm-hmm. Whether it was magical or whether it was psychological or mental illness of some sort.
And really, I think it's a little instance of kind of a feedback cycle. The warrior is in one mental state, and we're going to call them, I guess, victim in this is in a different mental state. And between those two, there is projection and perception, and there is a story. And it's interesting to see kind of what lasted of these moments of terror and fear. And right. I do think it is also worth noting that while this is a frenzy based on rage and furor, it is not really anger. That's not really where it usually comes from. It is this glory rage.
Yeah, it's like more an intense, like something that they love to do. They love to be fighting and gloriously representing everything that they enjoy. Like, I guess that's not a great way to describe it, but anyway, you continue. It's cool.
Well, yeah, just again, go to any heavy metal show and look at the mosh pit. Ask yourself, why are people in there? And it's because it's a feeling you're not going to get anywhere else.
There you go.
Yeah. So while I think Berserkers are freaking cool, I also feel like it should also be noted that with Norse mythology specifically, we kind of have to be a little careful these days. There are a lot of people who have kind of tried to claim it over the years as superior to, other people, that it is part of a proud, white power culture.
Yeah.
And really, when researching Norse mythology, it you don't have to fall down the rabbit hole far before you find some kind of statement saying that one race is better than another. And that's where I really want to kind of draw the line on this. I think that, we are celebrating this culture, even though it is a culture that was based on pillage and plunder and not necessarily kindness.
No.
It's still something to be remembered and celebrated, but not necessarily claimed as superior in any way
Right.
to any other group.
Well, and with these guys too, like it wasn't necessarily it wasn't really a race thing per se, because they were really fighting basically anybody else that wasn't specifically like a Viking, and maybe even other Vikings. I guess it wasn't really based on a skin color, really. I would think it was anywhere they could go and get their hands on more stuff, or somewhere they could find a battle. Right.
Yeah, if anybody saw if you saw the movie with Antonio Banderas, the 13th Warrior, that's not 100% accurate, but it's also not, inaccurate. Viking war bands were not just, a bunch of blonde-haired, blue-eyed guys. They were the best fighters they could find.
Yeah.
From
Wherever
villages
they
that they went through. Sometimes they were slaves that they collected. There's a really great song by a band called Turisas. They are, yes, another heavy metal band.
Hey, I know we have at least a few fans out there that are just as into heavy metal as you are.
There's heavy metal for everybody if you're willing to explore it. There's a lot of different flavors of it, and this particular song by Turisas is called "The Varangian Guard."
All right,
and it talks about It has profiles of the different warriors that made up the Varangian Guard. Now, the Varangian Guard were the Vikings that went east towards Russia.
Okay.
And so they were land-based mercenaries, and they collected warriors that way.
So none of these cool Viking ships.
Yeah, the ships that we all picture, that's one group of Vikings. And then the other ones went the other way. And, they met other people as they went. And they carried with them these stories, and they carried with them these ideas of what makes a good, honorable warrior. And very little of that had to do with what color your skin was.
Right. It makes a lot of sense in that regard, because why does your skin color matter if what we're looking for is fighting prowess, Like, this other person could be a way better fighter than this other guy. So why wouldn't we take this one rather than this one? It makes perfect sense if that's the kind of community. They're being selective on something that has nothing to do with really where you're from. It's just what you can do.
And so, no matter where you're from, you too can be a berserker.
Good to know. It won't be me.
Yeah, it's not for everybody.
Yeah, definitely not me. Maybe you. With some training.
I can only hope.
You've got the attitude for it. You just need more of
that's what it takes.
The skills.
So yeah, it is. So just going back to the berserkers as a creature,
right?
Let's see. I would say this is a creature that is a humanoid for sure, but I like to think that there is some magical element to them, an augmented humanoid.
Yeah. What do you think they look like if conjecturing magical creature, right? And shapeshifting.
I definitely like some shapeshifter element to them.
Like put on the bear pelt, put on the wolf pelt, and you look like what? Half man, half bear?
Oh, I think you definitely pick up some ursine or lupine traits. Then in a lot of the drawings, you get pictures that look very werewolf-like. And so I kind of think that that's, if you're going to treat it like a supernatural creature, I think that that's a pretty good direction to go. Mm-hmm. As far as alignment goes, I would say chaotic for sure. And
yeah, definitely chaotic. Probably really neutral.
Chaotic neutral, and with a strong bent toward chaotic evil. These were often regarded as not necessarily evil men, but the tools of evil men. So
that's fair.
There is that.
I did want to mention one of my favorites, probably my absolute favorite video game ever, period, is The Witcher 3. And within Witcher 3, he goes to a land that's very much like Nordic. So you have the same type of structure of leadership, and you have very similar visuals and everything. And there is like a part of the storyline there where people turn into bears. Like they have berserkers within this part of the story, and it's so cool. It's a whole part of like this quest and whatnot, but it's really cool to see this whole transformation thing. It's just one more example in pop culture of berserkers, but it's one of my favorite personally.
Yeah, it's really a cool cultural element. I know that it was touched on quite a bit in Skyrim, which borrowed a lot from Norse mythology.
Also a great one. I know it's been around for 8 zillion years, and I definitely have not finished it yet. So that's great. Yeah. But I actually played it on Saturday.
Oh, well done.
Finally getting into some of the main quest stuff that I've been kind of ignoring for a while. So, you know.
Well, so that's pretty much what we've got for Berserkers. They're kind of a straightforward creature. One thing that I would like to kind of add on, just as just a little button on the end of it, we know that war is something really, really traumatic on soldiers, and this is something that is a universal thing and has been since the beginning of time. And so, to talk about the mental state of warriors in any way, we're kind of coming at it from the outside here.
Yeah. Well, and with the conjecture you that you were saying with the schizophrenia aspect of it, you know, with the exploitation of some sort of mental illness in that way. I mean, it is some sort of manic something, but
oh yeah, it does feel right, you know, right in line with.
But that just makes it almost kind of even more tragic, you know. I mean that it could be something that is such a struggle to begin with, being used for used in a way that's definitely not healthy.
Yeah,
for sure. And yeah, so with exactly what you're saying, we know that's I'm kind of a pacifist. I'm not like a totally huge pacifist, just because I like don't have a huge problem in like video games and stuff, but I guess or TV shows, but it's also that I know that that's not real, and I honestly don't support any war anywhere, just because I don't like what it does to people. But we also have one of our very, very, very best friends is a captain in the Army, the U.S. Army, and he's one of the best people I've ever known in my life. You know, one of the smartest, one of the kindest, and it's you know, it's not ever a reflection on the people and the soldiers that are part of this. It's the fact that they're happening in the first place. The fact that the war is what's going on. The war is the problem, not any effort the soldiers. And I'm sure the Berserkers are a victim in somewhat of that way as well. You know, whether they're a victim of some sort of, I guess, forced drug use, if it's hallucinogenics, or they're being victimized by exploitation of some sort of illness that they have, or
and also it did
culture.
Help to it just helped to build into the culture that Germanic and Scandinavian peoples were naturally violent and stupid. That's something that, for example, the Romans actually had a phrase in Latin called the Furor Teutonicus, and that was the inherent brutishness of the Germanic peoples. And
because they were so fancy over there in Rome.
Yeah, and so it did swing both ways. It worked really to their advantage, and people being afraid of them, and they get this great reputation as this great killing force. Yeah. However, when it comes to when they have a great discovery or something that they want to share, or get a good deal in a trade or in a trade agreement, that takes a little bit more work for them. So
yeah, and it's kind of sad too, because I mean they were good tacticians and they made beautiful things, you know.
But they're largely remembered as being savage warriors.
Right.
Yeah.
Which some of them might have been, and I'm guessing most of them
they were
weren't.
the best at it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So just it's a nice reminder that there is a full story to every culture out there.
Absolutely.
Both from external and internal. And while the Berserkers were real people, they also have some cool, fantastical elements to them too.
For sure. I mean, this is, I think, one of the first creatures that I think we've ever done that has firm roots in history.
Yeah, it starts as they were real people.
Mm-hmm. And it's only like half of what it could be is really even magical. That's really even a quote unquote creature, really. Mm-hmm. And that's the magical aspect, really, of them actually transforming and being some sort of shapeshifter.
Yeah. Now, these are not cryptids per se. It's not really. There aren't really reports of berserkers being found in the woods or anything like that. However, there's a lot of conjecture that people with mental illness or these flashpoint outbursts may be, is that the same as what went into making a berserker? I would argue that it's a little bit different. I actually feel like it's a little closer to like football players getting really psyched up before a game.
Right, that's
it's
the zone.
It's more of a ritual to it than building up to a flashpoint.
Well, it could be even just some sort of meditative state, really.
Mm-hmm.
Like you practice it enough and you can get yourself into the zone of anything, whether it's clearing your mind and feeling calm, or whether it's clearing your mind and filling it with white hot rage and
you can
reckless abandon.
Put all kinds of things in there.
Yeah. So I mean, our minds are capable of really almost anything, given enough training and practice and desire to get to some point, short of magical powers, which, I mean, we all know magic is just science that we haven't realized exists yet. It's only going to keep growing, and maybe even the things that don't seem possible now will be possible in the future, which is pretty freaking cool, I gotta say.
I like it.
So anyway, you say that's what we've got for Berserkers, right?
Yep, I think we are good for Berserkers. I'm sure there are things that we didn't touch on. Again, this is kind of just an introduction in case you didn't know what they were. But I hope everyone learned something. Hope we had a good time. If anyone's got any questions or if I got things way wrong, then go ahead and tweet it to us.
Let us know.
We'll respond. We'll at least read them.
For sure. We like I said last week, we're going to be doing our promos at the end of our shows now. So the promo that we have for you guys this week is for a show called 3 Spooked Girls. And these ladies, they talk about paranormal and true crime, which go together super well. And they also give you drink recipes and suggestions just like we do. So you already know that they're good people. So if spooky things are up your alley, and we are assuming that they probably are, because you do listen to us and we do talk about some spooky things.
Yeah, if they aren't for you, then thanks for listening to us anyway.
Listen to the ones that aren't spooky. But if you do like that kind of thing, definitely check this show out. And we're going to play the promo for you right now.
Let's check it out.
Hey guys, my name is Tara.
And my name is Jessica, and together we co-host the podcast 3 Spooked Girls.
If you love the paranormal
or murder,
join us every Monday as we tell our listeners about a new spooky tale or true crime case.
We'll have a special drink recipe each episode picked out by me for you to enjoy while we scare the hell out of you.
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever the hell else you listen to podcasts.
Come hang out with us and get your spooky on.
All right, so listen to those ladies. And just as a reminder, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Folklore on the Rocks. You can find us at Twitter
at Folklore Rocks.
Pictures, notes, sources are on our website at folkloreontherocks.com. We'll have some super cool artistic interpretations of Berserkers within our notes this week, so I highly recommend checking them out. We've got a Patreon, we've got a PayPal button on our website, we have a merch shop, which is super cool. We've got From water bottles to t-shirts to bags to notebooks to beach towels, which is Logan's favorite kind of thing.
Yeah.
Favorite random thing that we have in the store.
Also makes an excellent turban.
Yes, it does. We've got all of those in our merch shop. That's, I believe it's folkloreontherocks.threadless.com. And we are giving out free stickers if you write us a review and send us in a screenshot to admin@folkloreontherocks.com. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. But we also ask maybe rate us somewhere, leave us a review. Anyway, once we hit that 100 reviews, we will be doing that bonus episode with that listener selected creature, which could be literally anything.
Anything.
That's a creature.
Yeah.
That's the only stipulation.
That has been selected.
It can be a humanoid creature. That's fine. But just in general, tell your friends about us if you like what you hear. Word of mouth is the best possible marketing that we could get. And, only you know who you know that will like us, really. So more and more people are getting into podcasts every single day. They're, as you guys know, super nice to listen to in your car, to listen to when you're working out, listen to if you're working on an art project, whatever you do with them, Maybe you listen to go to sleep at night. They are just gaining in popularity day in and day out. So, you never know who you'll tell that might actually super enjoy listening. So we highly recommend doing that.
And we trust you.
Yeah.
We're pretty sure you have pretty good taste because, well, you like
you're
us.
here.
So therefore, maybe you know some pretty cool people.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We will just automatically assume that. So
Sounds good.
but we thank you again for listening, and just tune in next Sunday.
Yeah, thanks everybody. We'll see you next week.